Okay, so Pamela Anderson, huh? You ready to go beyond the Baywatch image, really dig into her story? We've got a ton of your research right here, articles, interviews, the works. Get ready for some surprises because I think you'll be fascinated by what we uncovered.
Yeah, Pamela's life, it's not what you'd expect. It's about so much more than just her image. It's really about challenging expectations right from the very start.
Right, from the very beginning. I mean, picture it. Lady Smith, British Columbia, not exactly Hollywood, is it? That's where she started. Small town girl cheering for her local sports teams.
And not just cheering, she was athletic herself, you know? Some people even say that drive, that competitiveness, it kind of foreshadowed her activism later on. Always pushing boundaries, never afraid of a fight.
And talk about a life change. 1989, boom, she's a Playboy playmate. I mean, that's not just a career move, that's a whole different world.
Absolutely. It launched her straight into the spotlight. And then, of course, Baywatch hits, and she becomes the icon of the 90s.
Okay, gotta admit, I was digging through all these old photos of her from back then. That heavy eyeliner, those eyebrows, total 90s, right? But it also made me wonder how much of that look was really her, and how much was just the era.
It's funny how those beauty trends become like a time capsule, isn't it? Back then, it was all about this exaggerated glamour, almost like a suit of armor, you know. But Pamela, she wasn't content to just follow the trends. Eventually, she decided to challenge them.
And that's when we start to see her really take control of her image. She ditches the heavy makeup, goes for a more natural look. It's subtle, but it sends a message, don't you think?
Totally. It's not just about natural beauty. It's about pushing back against the very ideals she used to represent. That's when her own voice, her activism, really starts to come through.
Which, to be honest, kind of surprised me. I mean, we all remember the tabloid scandals, the whole Tommy Lee era.
Oh, that tape. It wasn't just a scandal. It was a turning point. I mean, think about it. 1995, the internet was just starting to take off. That was like the first taste of viral content, you know?
Yeah.
And it showed the dark side, how women especially could be exploited in this new digital world.
And for Pamela, it felt like that one incident just overshadowed everything else she was trying to do.
Which is a shame, because even back then, she was already using her platform to speak out against the very things people were criticizing her for. It's like that weird paradox, right? She was told to be less provocative, but she was becoming more and more vocal about important issues, especially animal rights.
And it wasn't just like showing up for a photo, right? We're talking years, decades even, of serious work, especially with PETA.
Oh, absolutely. Pamela was right there with PETA back in the late 90s when it wasn't exactly cool, you know. Put her image, her reputation, all of it on the line for animal rights.
Yeah.
Even those campaigns that, well, let's just say they ruffled some feathers.
Which, knowing Pamela, probably just made her even more determined, never one to back down from a challenge. But it wasn't just about animals, was it? I was looking through your research, and you mentioned some environmental work too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It went way beyond any one issue. And, you know, it kind of makes you think back to her growing up in British Columbia, surrounded by nature. Seems like that love for the natural world, it really stayed with her.
It's one thing to talk about causes, but it's another to actually do something about it, right? And that's where the Pamela Anderson Foundation comes in.
Exactly. Starting that foundation in 2014, that was a big deal. Showed how committed she really was. Not just a publicity thing. This was about building something that would last, you know? Supporting animal rights, the environment, even social justice. That's quite a legacy.
It really is. So we've got this passionate advocate, someone challenging beauty standards, fighting for what she believes in. But then I'm doing my research and I stumble across this. Pamela Anderson, author. Like, seriously, I had no idea.
Yeah. She doesn't always get credit for it, but she's actually a really talented writer. She's written a few books, including her memoir, Love, Pamela. Really worth checking out.
Okay, I'll be honest. I was expecting, like, juicy Hollywood stories, tell-all kind of stuff, but there's more to it than that.
Oh, sure. There's some of that in there.
Yeah.
But what really comes through is, well, her honesty, I guess. Her vulnerability. Especially when she writes about the media scrutiny, the way her relationships were always in the headlines, it kind of gives you a new perspective on her activism. You know, this need to control her own story.
And she could have just, I don't know, ridden that Baywatch wave for years, but she didn't. Always trying new things, pushing boundaries. Like, remember those cameos she did on The Simpsons and Dancing with the Stars?
Exactly. Says a lot about her personality, I think. Doesn't take herself too seriously, has a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Not afraid to make fun of herself, you know?
It's like she wanted to keep everyone guessing, never let herself be put in a box. Speaking of which, her personal life, that was always front page news, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Her relationships, her marriages, it was constant tabloid fodder. 3 marriages, high-profile romances. The media just couldn't get enough of it.
And it's easy to forget in all of that she's a mother too, right?
Yeah, with 2 sons, Brandon and Dylan, from her marriage to Tommy Lee. And from everything we've seen, she's a really dedicated parent. Just another side of this, complicated, multifaceted person.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. We started with Baywatch, then the activism, the writing, and now we're seeing this whole other layer. And on top of all that, I was reading about her philanthropy work, too.
It's funny, she does a lot that doesn't get a lot of attention. Supporting homeless shelters, cancer research, women's health initiatives, things like that. Her impact goes way beyond just, being a famous face.
Seriously. I had no clue. Every time I think I've got Pamela Anderson figured out, there's something else. Another passion project, another way she's defying expectations.
That's what makes her so interesting, right?
Yeah.
She refused to be put in a box. I mean, she embraced her sexuality, but she also challenged what it meant to be a sex symbol.
It's like she was saying, look, I can be glamorous and outspoken, a mother and an activist. I can be desired and taken seriously. She wasn't going to choose just one.
Absolutely. She refused to be defined by any one label. And by doing that, she really opened doors for other women, especially those in the public eye, to embrace their own complexities.
Yeah, she was way ahead of her time in a lot of ways. Now you see so many celebrities using their platforms to advocate for change, to challenge the status quo, to be themselves, even when it's messy.
And that's the legacy Pamela Anderson leaves us with, isn't it? Whether you agree with everything she's done or not, you got to admire her courage. Her willingness to speak her mind, use her voice for something bigger than herself.
I totally agree. We started this whole deep dive trying to understand the woman behind the icon, and I think we found her. Pamela Anderson, complex, contradictory, and a total force of nature.
Maybe, just maybe, her story will inspire all of us to think about what we'll use our own voices for, right?
Now that's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the life of Pamela Anderson. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep using your voice.